Just we can start for today's lesson. What is this grade 7 citizenship education? So it will continue chapter 2, or in short, unit 2, state and government. In the previous class, you will have to be take some definition for the meaning of state, the meaning of government. What does mean state? What does mean government? You have to be take some note and clarification properly in the previous class. Now we'll be continue what you can say the main difference or the main variation between state and government. When you know the meaning of state, when you know the meaning of government, you will have to be compare state and government in short. Government means this, state means this. So you have to be compare. State, you know the meaning of state properly in the previous class. The same is true, you know the meaning of government properly in the previous classes. So now we have to be compare and contrast those state and government. State means this, whereas government is this. Government is this, whereas state is this. So we have to be differentiate between those two things. That means the question is what is the difference between for state and government? This is one question that you have to be consider with your mind. So what's the difference between for state and government? What's the difference between for state and government? What is the difference? How we have to be differentiate between state and government? Let us come on the point. The difference between for state and governments are simply a state. It's made up of some elements. The one is people. The one is people. The one is people. A state simply constructed or made from the first one. What you have to be say people. It's people. The next one, a state in short, it's made up of territory. What does mean people in short? It's made up of people or population. You can say it's population or people. Possible you will have to be say people or you can say it's population. It's made up of people or population. People or population. People or population. So what does mean population or people in short? How you have to be understand that are people or population? What does mean people or population? A state must be made up of these four elements. The one is people, the other is territory, the coming one is government, the next one is sovereignty. People means, or population means, a group of people who live together in a defined territory or boundary. That we can say people or population. So when you say this is population or people, there is some territory that is demarcated or delimited. The people who live, we can say that's territory in short. This is territory. So when there is population, when there is territory, there must be governments that manage the people and to keep the territory. That simply, in short, government is also another element of state in short. The next one, sovereignty, independency in short. Sovereignty must be there. When there is a government, when there is population, when there is territory, sovereignty must be there. Or independency must be there. So this is simply, that's the state elements of state. Then, whereas government is only an element of state. Look it. Whereas government is only an element of state. It means that a state, it may be made up of four elements, whereas government only an element of a state. This is the main difference between for state and government. A state is different from government because a state, it may be contain four elements. That means population, territory, government, and sovereignty. Whereas government is only an element for status. So this is the one difference between for state and government. The next one, the concepts of state, most of the time, it is abstract and invisible. Most of the time, it's abstract and invisible. That means it cannot see easily. It's difficult to see easily. That is simply the concept of state. But as compare a state with government, government is visible or concrete. Concrete means the structure of the government will design and structure in short. That's simply concrete, we can say. When we look for here, invisible. It's difficult to see. It's difficult to see. That's invisible. The concept of the state is abstract most of the time. That means it cannot see. Abstract means possible to be seen easily. You know, it's most of the time it's abstract. So simply, the other difference between for state and government. A state is most of the time abstract and invisible, whereas government is visible and concrete. Concrete. Most of the times, the structure of the government is visible. You can see this is the structure of the government. It's possible and well structured. That's simply the difference between for state and government. State is strictly different from government because state is most of the times abstract, whereas government is concrete. A state is most of the times invisible, whereas government is most of the time is what? Visible, possible to be seen, possible to see. ይሄኛው ስንመጣ ሊታይ የሚችል ነው። ይሄኛው ጋር ስንመጣ ግን ሊታይ የማይችል የረቀቀ ማለት ነው። ሀገር እንደ ሀገር የረቀቀች ናት ማለት ነው። So this is simply it's clear for you the difference between for state and government. State is strictly different from government is another reason or another cases. The next one, being a membership in a state is mandatory or compulsory. Being a membership in a state, every person must become a membership of a state mandatory or compulsory. But when you come to become a membership in a government is entirely voluntary now. To become being a member of the government is voluntary. You can enter in as a volunteer. It's not mandatory. It's not obligatory. It's not obligation. But you become voluntarily to join as a member of a government. So this is entirely what you can say for mandatory. This is entirely what you can say for voluntary. So the main difference between for state and government is this. This is voluntary. This is voluntary. This is mandatory or compulsory. So this is another difference between for state and government. When you come the next one, the fourth one. Every state has four essential elements commonly. Every state, every country in short. Each country must have to be contain these four elements. What are the four elements of the status? What are the four elements of status? It's every state, every country. Every state means every country. Every state or every country has four essential elements commonly. So the question is what are the four elements of status? What are the four elements of the state? It's the question. Can you tell me or will you tell me? Can you tell me what are the four essential elements of status? What are the four essential elements of status? A state as a state, it may be contain four elements. So what are they? Those elements of status. Every state, every country must have to be contain four elements. Every status. So what are they? What are they? The four elements of status. Can you tell me or would you tell me? Can you tell me? Please tell me. Please. Please tell me. Four elements of state. Can you tell me? What's their names, first of all? What's their names? Nuruddin. Can you tell me? Four elements of state. Would you understand the question? Territory. Thank you. Good. Thank you. Good. Territory is one element of state. A state as a state, it may be contain four elements. And ሀገር ለመሆን አራት ኤሌመንቶችን ይይዛል። አንድ ሀገር ለመሆን ማንኛውም ሀገር አራት ኤሌመንቶችን ይይዛል ሀገር ለመባል። እንግዲህ every state has four essential elements. Look it. Every state, every country has four essential elements. Four essential elements. So what are those elements of state? The question is What are those four essential elements of status? Can you tell me or would you tell me those four essential elements of state? The one is territory. Territory is also one element of state or as a state or as a country, one element of state. Government. Good. What's your names? Hawa. Nuruddin? Recognition. Sovereignty. Good. People, population, people. Good. So every state as a state, it may contain four essential elements. Commonly, every state, not only one state, but each and every state must have to be contain four essential elements. One, territory, the other population, the other government, the other sovereignty, the other recognition. Those are simply four elements of status. When you come in the form of the government, the form and the characteristics of the government is differ from one state to another state. Look, it may be differ from one country to another country when you come here. But when you come here, wherever we go, each status must have to be contain four elements. That means having territory, having population, having government, having sovereignty is clear for you. It may be contained for these things properly. But when you come for it, the form and the characteristics of the government, it may be different from country to country. The structure of the government in Ethiopia is different from the structures of the government in America. It may be different. That's clear for you. So it may be different from country to country or state to state. The form and the characteristics of the government, it may differ from state to state. When you come here, the first one, whenever we go, each state, every state may be contained, may be including 4 essential elements properly. It is clear for you. This is the difference between for state and government. A state is strictly different from government. It means that a state, it may be contained 4 elements. When you come here, the structure and the characteristics of the government, it may be differ from state to state. One state may have some structure, the another state may not have that structures. This is simply the difference between for state and governments, clearly. The next one, most of the time, a state is relatively stable or permanent. The state is stable or permanent to live forever. That government is what? Temporal, come and go. Some government to come for to die. In the another times that government may not be exist or present. Come and go in short. So when you come here, the last one, a state is most of the time, it is stable or permanent. But government is temporal. What does it mean temporal? What does it mean temporal? What does it mean temporal? Government is, state is permanent. The state is temporal. Government is temporal, state is permanent. The state is permanent, to live forever. To live forever. A state as a state, to live forever. State as a state, it may be live forever. It may be live forever. Forever you can't, to live. But when you come, government is temporal. Temporal. It may become sometimes, it may be lose other times or absent for other times. It may not be there, that government. Do you understand temporal and permanent? Do you understand? Let us come upon our language. ወደኛ ቋንቋ እናምጣውና አንድ ቀለል ያለ ነገር ልንገራችሁ ትንሽ ክሊር እንዲሆንላችሁ ነው። ስቴት ሪላቲቭሊ ስቴብል ኦር ፐርማነንት አገር እንደ ሀገር ትቀጥላለች። አገር እንደ ሀገር ህዝብ አላት፣ ቴሪቶሪ አላት፣ መንግስት አላት፣ ሶቨርኒቲ አላት። መንግስት ግን ካም ኤንድ ጎ ነው። ዛሬ የሆነ መንግስት ይመጣና የሆነ ታይም ይቆይና ይወድቅና ሌላ መንግስት ይመጣል። ስለዚህ ስቴት አስ ስቴት ኢት ኢዝ ሲምፕሊ ስቴብል ናት። ስቴብል ነው የምትባለው ወይም ደግሞ ፐርማነንት ናት፣ ቋሚ ናት፣ አትቀየርም፣ ትቀጥላለች እንደ ሀገር። ግን መንግስት ግን ምን ያደርጋል? ይቀየራል። ካም ኤንድ ጎ ሶ ዲዩ ቱ ዚስ ዊ ካን ሴይ ቴምፖራሪ ነው የምንለው። አያችሁ፣ ለዛ ነው ገቨርንመንት ኢዝ ሞስት ኦፍ ዘ ታይም ቴምፖራሪ ኢት ካም ኤንድ ጎ በት ስቴት ኢዝ ስቴብል ፐርማነንት ቱ ሊቭ ፎርኤቨር ይለዋል። ለረጅም ጊዜ መቆየት የምትችል ናት ይለዋል። ግን መንግስት ግን ካም ኤንድ ጎ ነው። ስለዚህ አያችሁ ስታነጻጽሩት ሁለቱን ቃል ኮምፔር ኤንድ ኮንትራስት ስታደርጉት when we compare and contrast those two words ግልጽ የሚሆነው ቋንቋ ስቴት ምንድናት? ስቴት ምን ትሆናለች? ስቴት ጥቀስ ሆኖ ስቴት ቋሚ ናት አይደል? ስቴት ማለት ፐርማነንት ናት አይደል? ወይም ደግሞ ስቴብል ናት፣ ቋሚ ናት፣ አትቀየርም። ገቨርንመንት ግን ምን ያደርጋል? come and go. One time some government came and maybe that government is absent. The next other government must be expected አይደል? የሆነ ገቨርንመንት ይመጣና ያ ገቨርንመንት ሲጠፋ የሆነ ታይም ላይ ደግሞ ሌላ ገቨርንመንት ይመጣና ይጠበቃል ማለት ነው። So we have to decide it is temporal, we have to decide it is stable or permanent. So the difference between for state and government, the state is most of the time is stable or permanent. When you come here this temporal ብለን እናስቀምጣለን. It's clear for you most of the time. So እንግዲህ ይሄንን ያህል ካል state is abstract የሚለውን ቃል ወደ ኋላ መለስ ስላድርጋችሁና ትርጉሙን ልተርጉምላችሁ። state is abstract ምን ማለት ነው? abstract state is abstract ይላል። state the concept of state is most of the time abstract inside the question. The concept of state is abstract. What does mean abstract? The word is so much difficult most of the time. It is mandatory to know the word when you come in citizenship education. If you know, it's difficult for you, for me, not only for you, for me it's difficult. So you know the word. ወርዶችን ማወቅ ግዴታ ነው። ለእናንተም ለኔም አስቸጋሪ ነው የሚሆነው። ምክንያቱም ወርድን ማወቅ ስለግራችሁ ሐሳቡን ትረዱኛላችሁ። ከዛዎች ከሆነ ግን ትንሽ አንግባባም እና ቃላትን ለማወቅ ሞክሩ ነው። አብስትራክት ማለት ምንድነው? የማይታይ good what's your names say ኑረዲስ abstract ማለት የማይታይ የረቀቀ አሁን ሀገር እንደ ሀገር አትታይም ረቀቅ ያለች ናት invisible ይለዋል አያችሁ the concept of state is abstract and invisible ግልጽ እኮ ነው invisible it's difficult to see but when you come government is what visible what does it mean የሚታይ ማየት የሚቻል possible you can see the structure of the government አሁን የገቨርንመንትን ስትራክቸር ማየት እንችላለን አወቃቀሩን the structure of the government three organs of government የሚባሉ አሉ ተምራችኋል አይደል ሶስት የመንግስት አወቃቀሮች የሚባል በድሮ መጽሐፍ ተምራችኋል አይደል ህግ አውጭ ህግ አስፈጻሚና ህግ ተርጓሚ ህግ አውጭ ህግ አስፈጻሚና ህግ አስተርጓሚ ተብለው በሶስት ይከፈላሉ የመንግስት ስትራክቸር እናያቸዋለን legislative executive እና what legislative እና executive እና judiciary ይባላሉ በእንግሊዘኛው legislative ማለት to make for the law makers ናቸው ወይም ደግሞ ምን ይባላሉ ህግ አውጪዎች ናቸው executive ደግሞ ምንድናቸው ህግ አስፈጻሚ judiciary ማለት ደግሞ ህግ ተርጓሚ ዳኞቹ ማለት ነው most of the time the judiciary must have to interpret for the law the first one to make for the law the next one to implement to enforce for the law the laws that may be make for here then to come here to implement to enforce the law must have to be enforced when you come here law እዚህ ጋር ስንመጣ ምን ይደረጋል implement enforce ይደረጋል አያችሁ እዚህ ጋር ይወጣል እዚህ ጋር ልክ ህግ ይፈጸማል የወጣው ህግ ያስፈጽመዋል ስራ አስፈጻሚ አካሎች ያስፈጽሙታል እዚህ ጋር ደግሞ ዳኞች ደግሞ ህግን ይተረጉሙታል to interpret for the law the judiciary organ should have to be interpret for the law this is the structure what can say for the three organs of government the three organ or the three structures of the government legislative executive and judiciary possible to see the structure of the government የመንግስት ስትራክቸር ማየት የምንችለው እንደዚህ ሲሆን ነው አያችሁ ህግ አውጭ አለ ህግ አስፈጻሚ አለ ህግ አስተርጓሚ አለ ስለዚህ ስትራክቸሩ በግልጽ ይታያል ሲሰራ ምን ሲል ማለት so this structure this form this characteristics it may be differ from country to country or state to state in short but when you come here every state may be contained commonly for those four elements in short so due to this government is most of the time is what visible and concrete well structured እና ሊታይ የሚችል በደንብ ዲዛይን የተደረገ ስትራክቸር ያለውና ሊታይ የሚችል የገቨርንመንት ካራክተሪስቲክስ ነው መለያ ነው ብለን እናስቀምጠዋለን ስቴት ስንመጣ ግን ምንድነው የሚሆነው ምን ይሆናል ወደ ስቴት ስንመጣ ምን ይሆናል ስቴት ስንመጣ አብስትራክት ይሆናል አይደል የማይታይ አያችሁ እያስነጻጸርን እኮ ነው አሁን ስታነጻጽሩ ኮምፔር ኤንድ ኮንትራስት እናደርገው ይሄንኛውን ሐሳብ ስቴት ማለት ይሄ ነው እዚህ ጋር ስንመጣ ገቨርንመንት ማለት ደግሞ ይሄ ነው መባል መቻል አለበት don't forget in your mind ጥያቄ ሲጠየቅ ሁሉ ጊዜ what is the difference between for state and government ከተባለ አሁን ስቴት ማለት ይሄ ነው ገቨርንመንት ማለት ደግሞ ይሄ ነው ብላችሁ ነው የምታስቀምጡልኝ አሁን ሐሳቡ እንደዛ ነው ሌላ ምንም ወደ ሌላ ዴፊኒሽን ምን ወስደው ነገር የለም when we look at what is the difference between for state and government a state to say for this whereas government to say for this the same is true a state whereas abstract and invisible whereas government is visible and concrete ayachu it's clear for you it is concrete and visible it is invisible and abstract it's clear most of the time it's abstract and invisible most of the time this is visible and concrete it is the difference between for state and government a state is abstract and invisible whereas government is what visible and concrete ታው እንጂ ግልጽ ይሆንላችሁ ሐሳቡ አሁን ሉክ የምታደርጉትን ሐሳቡን ማለት ዲዛይን ስታደርጉት ሐሳቡን ስቴት ማለት እንደዚህ ነው ካል ገቨርንመንት ማለት ደግሞ እንደዚህ ነው ፎር ኤግዛምፕል አንድ ክሊር ኤግዛምፕል ልስጣችሁ ኡስማን I think Usman and Nuruddin Usman is very strong Nuruddin is very weak Sai Nuruddin is most of the time is long Nuruddin Usman is what short አይደለ compare and contrast ማወዳደር ነው እኮ ኡስማን አጭር ነው ኑረዲን ረጅም ነው ኡስማን ቀይ ነው ኑረዲን ጠይም ነው ኡስማን ጠንካራ ነው ኑረዲን ምን ይሆናል ደካማ ሆነ ይያል ሁለቱን ማነጻጸር መቻል አለብን ማለት ነው ስለዚህ compare and contrast ማለት እንደዛ ነው ሁለቱን ነገሮች ምን ማድረግ ነው ማነጻጸር ያ ማለት ልዩነታቸው ነው ማለት ነው so what is the difference between for state and government to say a state is this whereas government is this state is this look when you come here being a membership in state is most of the time is mandatory when you come a membership in state it's mandatory but when you come to become a membership in a government entirely or at the whole, it is voluntary. It's not mandatory. To become a membership in a government is voluntary. By voluntary, you can join as a member of a government. If not, you cannot. If not, you cannot to become interim, join as a member of a government. So being a member of a government, most of the time, is voluntary. Being as a member of a state is mandatory or compulsory. In short, it's clear for you. This is another difference between for state and government. The next one, a state. It's clear for you. It may be contained for this element properly. That means every state, እያንዳንዱ ሀገር እንደ ሀገር ምን ነገር ያስፈልገዋል? አራት ኤሌመንቶችን መያዝ አለበት። ሀገር ለመባል ስቴት ለመባል አራት ኤሌመንቶችን ስትይዝ ገቨርንመንት ደግሞ ገቨርንመንት ለመባል ራሱን የቻለ ፎርም እና ካራክተሪስቲክስ አላቸው። እነዛ ፎርም እና ካራክተሪስቲክስ ከምን ይለያያሉ? ከሀገር ይለያያሉ። it may be differ from state and state but when you come here እዚህ ጋር ስንመጣ ግን ሁሉም ሀገር ምን አለው? ሁሉም ሀገር መንግስት አለው። ሁሉም ሀገር ድንበር አለው። ሁሉም ሀገር ህዝብ አለው። ሁሉም ሀገር ሶቨሬኒቲ አለው አይደል? every state must have to be contained four essential elements commonly በጋራ ሁሉም ሀገር። እዚህ ጋር ስንመጣ ግን ከቦታ ይለያያሉ። ስለዚህ ይሄኛው ዲፈረንሳቸውን ሰፓሬት ወይም ደግሞ ሰግሪጌት እያደረግን ነው። the next one እንግዲህ state is most of the time stable or permanent ነው። government is most of the time is what? ምንድን ነው የሚሆነው? government ምን ይሆናል? መንግስት ምን ይሆናል ታዲያ? most of the time most of the time the government will be what? ሀገር እንደ ሀገር ትቀጥላለች አይደል? መንግስት ይቀያየራል። ስለዚህ government is temporary አያችሁ temporary ወይም ደግሞ come and go government possible come and go state is permanent stable to live ማለት ነው። this is clear for you. In the next will be continue. Now it is enough for you. In the next will be continue unit 3 or chapter 3. What does mean democracy? The meaning of democracy. What does mean democracy? The word democracy comes from what? Or the etymological definitions of democracy. What does it mean? Where come from democracy? Where come from? The original place of democracy where? The original place of democracy or the birthplace of democracy where? Where democracy was birth or comes. The word democracy comes from what? In short, democracy comes from what? Form of democracy. Way of democracy is there on our textbook. So we'll be continue the next class. Now it's enough for you. Next will be continue. Some American president, what you can see for Abraham Lincoln, to give some definition for democracy. Democracy means, democracy means government of the people, by the people, for the people. So what does mean government of the people? What does mean by the people? What does mean for the people? So this definition is there. In the next class will be continue. Now it's enough for you. If you have any question, well, now this is enough for you. If you have any question regarding for this lesson, if you have any question, well, this is enough for you for today's lesson. ጥያቄ ካላችሁ መጠየቅ ትችላላችሁ።